What a difference a year makes? I don't think anyone would fight me on calling the G8 an S model year, like iPhones, how they have a TikTok strategy. 1 year is more focused on design, the next year refines the internals. There's a lot of the LG G7 DNA left over. Not a particularly exciting year for the G8 visually, but a lot of attention has been poured into small quality of life improvements. So here's a quick breakdown, and let's see if we can answer that question. The highest praise I can offer a new phone: is it worthy of a 1-year upgrade? Tiny touches all around. The G8 moves us to an OLED display. The quad sub-pixel LCD on the G7 is a terrific screen. So while I generally prefer the inky contrast on an OLED, I would call this a lateral move, and I think there are still a handful of people in my audience rightly concerned about long-term performance and burn-in. Still, many more people will likely feel better knowing that the G series phones finally use OLEDs. Headphone performance is still top tier for both phones, with no competition in this category. LG is the big dog, objectively. But the speaker tech gets a nice tweak on the G8 with an in-display high-frequency speaker. It's not true stereo, but it nicely fills out the sound over other dual speaker options I've used. The G7 is a louder monster when you use boombox, but the G8 is a touch nicer in the hand, and I think it's easier to hear phone calls when you're out and about. For those concerned about biometric security, a time of flight sensor on the front raises face unlock to near iPhone levels of security. You can't fool the G8 with a picture of your face, like you can on some other phones. The palm unlock feature does work. I'm just not sure I can exactly pinpoint yet where or when I might need something like that. And for the front camera, the other extra gimmicks are extra. But the main takeaway for me right now is more secure face recognition. The main rear camera, likewise, gets a little spec bump, increasing sensor size over the G7. The G7 is a solid all-rounder, but the G8 is better in dimmer and darker situations, and now includes a better standalone night mode, which is all the rage in phone cameras these days. Though I do like the camera app layout on the G7 better, the G8 is a more capable content creation platform. As a platform, it is nice to have a newer chipset, but the power gains between the G7 and the G8 really haven't been realized by app developers. It's a little faster at rendering video, it is faster still at stabilizing video, and it's a little smoother for gameplay, but we're at a point where I think even advanced users would struggle to point to real-world usage improvements. Not until software better leverages what this hardware can do. What's real easy to notice though, battery life. A larger capacity cell with a smaller chipset fabrication process, and it's a lot easier to make it through the day and night on the G8. Lastly, such a niche feature, but one I really wish more people were using. The G8 returns with true USB 3 support and the ability to output the display to HDMI. We're quickly entering an era where your phone is noticeably more powerful than a low-end PC, and I'm getting ridiculously excited for a native desktop mode built directly into Android. Please, Google, don't screw that up. But even without a desktop mode, you can get a surprising amount of work done on a larger display. And all it takes is a cheap laptop hub to facilitate a great sit-down computing or gaming experience. So that's the quick rundown. Where's that leave us on the LG G8 versus the G7? Is it worth the 1-year upgrade? In general, I think I need to lean towards no, but with one significant caveat. It's not for anything lacking on the G8, mind you. The G7 is still a ridiculously powerful phone that most people aren't likely using anywhere near its limits. There are a number of perks moving from a G7 to a G8. And I could maybe make the argument for battery life alone, but on the whole, if a majority of your usage is pretty average stuff, communication, social media, listening to music, the G7 is still a rocking option to get you through your day. That being said, when you balance these improvements against more advanced use, the G8 becomes a much more desirable option for HDMI support, improved low-light camera capabilities, a more stable, high bitrate 60 frame per second UHD video capture, and that extra battery bump. You can really get work done from your phone. Some real heavy lifting. And that's where this kind of hardware absolutely starts to shine. It always requires a bit of nuance, talking about who might be a good fit for a 1-year upgrade. But if you're coming from an LG G6, or somehow even an LG G5, Now is a real good time to make that jump to a G8. Now stay tuned for the full LG G8 review after I've spent some more time with this beauty in red, and I'll be adding to this video on Patreon, doing a deeper dive into the camera and audio capabilities. You can catch all of that content on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy in the coming days and weeks. Thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to this channel. Links in the description below for all of my LG G8 coverage, and also a few ways that you can help support production on this channel. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet. At SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks, and a bit more often on the Twitch. And I will catch you all on the next video. Trying to keep these phones in my lap, and they keep falling to the floor. Durability test.